I'd like to call to order the March 25th meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. We'll start with a roll call. Brian Barabee, Jim Stone,
Laura Stevenson.
Maria Berman. Carol Gumbart.
okay. And it looks like we'll be doing Avery 397 Berlin Road first. I'd like to open the public meeting on a request for determination of applicability filed by Lewis and Valentina Avery. Just the legal notice that went out. Visit the Bolton Conservation Commission will hold a public meeting under the provisions of MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act and Riverfront Act, and under Bolton Wetland Bylaws, Section 118. To consider a request for determination of applicability filed by Lewis and Valentina Avery for improvements and maintenance to a common driveway serving 387, 389, 393, and 397, and Lot 4 Berlin Road. The public meeting held tonight, and I'd like the names of anybody who is present for the Averys.
Yeah, Lewis Avery. Stephen McGarry.
And wait, I think Jack on too.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was official.
You're here.
Okay.
If you have just, if you could present the project that you are proposing.
We have a new picture,
They don't have the application. You submitted the application to me, so they haven't reviewed it at all, so all the information, other than the legal notice, is all they have.
Oh, okay. All right, so I will distribute this.
And we don't usually meet in here, so we've never had this set up. If you need a table, we can put a table like to lay out any of the plans or
Yeah,
anything like that.
okay, yeah, no,
Or just up on this table.
yeah, I thought the documents were going to be distributed. Essentially, in short, I'll let you guys pass this along. We have a common driveway that runs from Berlin Road back to Four Homes, okay, set back from the road. There is,
Can you just tell whereabouts on Berlin Road, so we have an idea of which road is it?
Yeah, well, and they know it's 401 Berlin Road. I don't know if they know it's Rogers.
yeah, so the common driveway was originally only partially paved. There's a segment right in the middle that's still clay. That segment traverses a stream, runs alongside a farm pond. What we'd like to do is essentially upgrade that from being clay to paving. Okay, so it's been an open question whether or not there would be an additional house served by that driveway. That's still very much up in the air. So tonight what we wanted to talk about was really just the maintenance on the existing driveway. Okay, so converting what's clay to paving. So this is a drawing from one of the pavers who's come by to give us an estimate. And essentially the middle section here identifies where the bridge is that traverses the stream. And from here to here is clay. So we want to redo that. We're also considering, I should say the project's moving a little bit, maybe taking the paved portion from the road down almost to the bridge, so that portion is paved, and just redoing paving. Okay, so that would be, I know we would probably have to resubmit the application. This is just something that came up in discussion with the pavers.
Well, with the request for determination, you're explaining what you want to do, and the commission's going to determine whether they can do it, you can proceed with it under the determination process, or whether you need a notice of intent. So right now, it can be a little fluid because you're in the public meeting process, so you can sort of say some of the things that you think, that came up after you met with the contractor.
Thank you.
But like, we don't have that as part of the filing anyway, so you will need to make that part of the filing since we're passing it around.
Okay.
And we'll have that as part of the record.
Okay. All right, so that's kind of the scope of the
Oh,
work.
can I interrupt one more time? And I do have the other things you submitted, though, if you want to share, like any of your aerials or anything like that. If you want to pass those out, or use those to,
Yeah, I don't have copies
Okay.
myself yet.
Well, the
So-
second half doesn't even look like it's out of the 200 riverfront, doesn't look like it's in our jurisdiction anyway, by the street.
the street section's not.
Right.
Right, they
So that
didn't,
wouldn't even be
they
an
didn't
issue.
give a plan that shows the 200-foot riverfront area?
Yeah, well, this just has some kind of rough estimates.
Oh, does it? Okay, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah.
But here's an aerial that they submitted with the application. And do you want me to pass around the as-built plan that you submitted then too, or is that one that you have there?
I don't have that. So, yes,
That would be helpful.
yeah, so this is an aerial shot off of Google, and essentially Berlin Road is over here to orient you. Okay, north, south, and this is the part up here that's already paved that we might replace. This is the clay portion that goes to the bridge, and we're paving up to where our paving resumes. Up here, the homes are that way. Mr. Pace?
This is uphill.
This is uphill, and this is downhill. Yep, so part of the schema that we have from the pavers, yes, yeah, part of the schema from the pavers would be to put in a swale on this side and a swale on that side to catch what would be coming down the ward, which is the wetlands, or the stream area.
Is that what those are?
Yeah, that's what these are. Yep. So these would be coming right here on this side. Can't catch any water because we would probably pitch the driveway this way, so the water would run into the field side, into this side, and then just capture it in the swale. Yeah, so this is where Mr. Bemis lives, and here's the farm pond. There's an earthen bridge that goes over right there and over there.
So can I ask you, what are the problems that you're having with the drainage there?
Right now, there's very little runoff management that was built into the driveway when it was originally installed, so we'd really like to correct that problem.
But so like, do you have ponding of water that sits over the bridge area, or is it?
No,
It's
a lot
not,
of erosion though.
yeah, it's erosion along the sides of the driveway. Yeah, and clearly taking a lot of clay material, like sweeping it down probably into the street.
And potholes over the bridge. So the paving
And stabilize all of that, and obviously make our maintenance easier as well.
The part of the reason I'm asking is so that we can think a little bit about whether swales are really the only avenue, because, you know, there are lots of other technologies, rain gardens and things like that might work just as well, or maybe function even better at knowing what the problem is. So, you know, so we need to understand the problem that you're having in order to think about whether swale's the best solution for it.
Yeah, I can't comment on the
Did
relative
the
merits.
contractors have any other, did you mention swales to him, or did he think of the swales? Like, was that?
We brought up the topic of managing the runoff and then started the discussion about what we might do. We probably raised the question of swales. One contractor said, well, we could run, what was it, a ditch, what do you call it?
Stone.
Yeah, a stone
Stone
ditch,
culvert.
culvert along the side, and then ultimately channel it all into a swale. No one brought up, the garden option.
Well, I think one of the things that we want to do is protect the stream as much as possible, right? And so that depending on where the problems are and where the erosion is, whether capturing in a swale that's still going to go in the wetland may not serve the purpose from our end. It might help with the pavement management, but, we want to then protect the stream as well, so.
Yeah, this swale would open up to, where the Conservation Commission has an easement now to access that back lot. Along that. This is in an area that would probably function as a container because there's the berm. Do you remember the berm situation? Right along the stream, there's kind of a berm over here that separates this immediate area from the stream area.
So is that before or after the easement going in? It's a trailhead, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a trailhead, yeah. And so we could potentially just segment that off and use that kind of contained area, which already collects water just naturally because of the way it's structured. We could walk the site and show you.
Well, that's usually what the commission ends up doing after they've sort of gone over everything, is they typically like to see things. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know there's a couple of things that I just mentioned, in our email communication that I should just tell the commission about. So if it's, let's see, so there's two things one thing we'd be interested in is whether or not the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program has an interest in the driveway. And just maintenance of the driveway, they wouldn't. But improvements to the driveway, they probably would. So that would be somebody you'd want to talk to as well before you actually finalize things, because it may mean that you have to may be worth it in the long run if they're gonna find that it doesn't have any impact, but you just have to do the review with them.
So the improvement would be the creation of the swale, is that it, or?
Probably that would be part of it, and you'd have to ask them definitively what would cost, maintenance versus the improvement. Whether, adding the additional pavement itself would, because some of it's not paved already. I'm not positive, but you'd want to check with them, and I can give you the name of somebody.
Yeah.
And then the same sort of goes with the planning board, because they review common driveways, and so there's certain standard as to, whether it's just maintenance of an existing driveway versus an improvement that would require something further with them as well.
Planning board.
It's the State Department of Fisheries and Wildlife, and it's the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program.
Can you
There-
send me their contacts in email?
Yeah, I would just put a note to do that. Just a second. They're reviewing like all the stuff that's going on the Bemis property, and they looked at the Fry Road property, so they kind of are familiar with the whole area anyway. So,
Yeah, let me do that.
and then do you have a sense as to, so under this determination, which you did file with Lot 4 included, are you saying you don't want to include that any longer, or you're not sure yet?
Yeah, we are going to exclude that because quite honestly, we don't have an agreement. And that would be separate work. I think that if Mr. Pacer were going to undertake it, he would do it himself. So we're only going to take care of our own common driveway.
And do you think on, like the plan that's in front of Jim, that you just show, so there's where the terminus is of the common driveway? Like, and then where, is that shown on that plan clearly? I can't remember.
Terminus by.
Well, like where the I have it on that sketch plan where you're gonna pave, but it would be helpful on the as-built if you could even mark up where it's,
Yeah, just with a highlighter.
yeah. Or, if not tonight, then for the site visit that they did, or.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, could do that. I did that in a PDF. That I sent.
Well, then it
the
didn't
second
print that
to-
way, so I don't, I mean, I
Yeah.
printed everything you've submitted on,
Oh.
usually we get a hard copy, and so I printed out whatever you gave me, but I don't know,
Got it.
maybe I didn't notice that.
way. I'll make a hard copy and then just take it. Yeah, I done it electronically.
Anything else you guys?
It would seem that we should probably schedule a site visit if possible to take a look and see
With what they're proposing makes sense, and just to get an idea of what we're actually getting into there. Possible to set a date now with everyone, or is that better to do
Yeah, I mean, our next meeting's not until April 15th, so we have plenty of time.
plenty of time to, should we try to come up with a date tonight for a visit, or is that something?
Yeah, see if you can, because then you have them here and figure out when they're available to show you as well.
Is it all staked out or roughly where, obviously where the pavement ends, but
Yeah, nothing's staked, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Here, yeah.
well, I guess more the drainage ditches that you want to put, is that obvious where those are gonna be located or?
It's,
Yeah.
yeah, we would be there to show you. It hasn't been specifically worked out right now, it's just a rough sketch.
Well, I just wanted, in timeline, this weekend or like 2 weeks from now would be a better idea. This I'm just trying to figure out, so you have an idea before our next meeting. So we can
Yeah.
schedule a meeting between now and then, whether you'd rather have us come sooner or later.
I didn't say probably sooner. Yeah, just to kind of see the site, especially if we don't actually know what kind of mitigation measure might be most appropriate between a garden or a swale.
We'll give them more time to maybe work some stuff out.
Yeah, because I'm guessing, you said it was the Fishery and Games Department? that
Mass
might-
Fish and Wildlife.
Okay, that might have some input as to what kind of.
No, their input would just be over the endangered species habitat, and whether or not the work you're going to do is subject to their review under the state law.
Alright. And I guess I'm sorry, it's still not really clear to me, if we were looking at different mitigation measures, runoff, whose input are we looking for?
Well, usually you bring it to the commission and tell them what you're thinking. So you've given them the swales, and then we usually
Yeah.
talk about, well, what are some of the other options? And so that's why I was asking, like, what you're trying to achieve with it. You know, so if you're gonna crown it and sheet it to one side, and then, you know, instead of, you're not doing the full-length swale, I don't know why that one wasn't the option necessarily, but what we want to, I guess what the commission's gonna want to look at is, you know, what the impact is to the wetland now, and if you were to put in the swales, how that would improve the condition, or whether that would have an impact on the wetland still. You know, and then it's a matter of asking you to research it further, or having them give you some ideas if they have some ideas.
That's not accurate,
Well, nobody here is an engineer either, you know, or a contractor, so just what we see, you know, but it doesn't always work for every site, so sometimes it does require, you know, somebody with construction experience or engineering experience. Which I can just introduce briefly, because everybody probably doesn't want it, but Jack Sargent was involved in the construction of that original subdivision. So
Carol asked me about it earlier today, and I said, yeah,
he was going to get rid of the cobwebs.
cobwebs, because that was 20 odd years ago, but it's funny hearing, because what we're gonna do, 20 years ago when we approved this, we wanted to pave the driveway, and the Conservation Commission back then said, you can't pave the driveway because it's gonna cause more issues with the wetlands, so. that
Well,
was why
it
this
does
was down.
superheat, you know, and so that's the
Well,
other
they
thing with the
were-
swale versus something
Yeah,
else.
no, they were worried more about runoff, and the whole concept was to leave it as a gravel driveway and let the moisture either run off to the sides or percolate down through the gravel. That was, and we did 2 or 3 of them around the same concept, time, that was the same concept.
And I think depending on, especially on a common driveway, getting everyone to agree to the maintenance, sometimes it's been, we've seen it on some other driveways where they don't all come to the same agreement at the same time, and so things don't get maintained. And every year with the gravel driveway, you've got to regrade it,
It's a
essentially.
It's a continual process.
Right.
and-
Right.
And if the driveway is paved properly, you put the right drainage situations in place, you'll have a whole lot less problem than you ever have with a gravel driveway.
I mean, so that's the other thing, is whether or not really it should have any catch basins in it, you know, whether it should have any kind of a leaching, you know, basin that would work. And so those are the things that maybe, I don't know if I could find enough in the old filing that would say what you wanted to do originally, whether that would
Yeah.
still work for today, but
Yeah, I don't,
this is just the as-built that they had.
yeah, I think originally it just had a few small swales on the side, and it was, basically the whole idea was to catch the water coming down the hill and divert it before it got down to the brook, from what I remember. But, there was nothing, there were no, siltation basins or anything like that that were required at the time.
Yeah, so we're trying to keep the watershed the same, right? You want the water to go to where it's supposed to flow, but we don't want it to go with, you know, the salts and the sands and things that go on a paved driveway, and the same with the oils and the pollutants that tend to go on it. So if there's a way of either putting it in the swales to kind of filter that out before it gets to the wetland, that's a lot of what they call the country drainage that we see a lot of, you know, around town a lot. But it still needs to be maintained. And so that's the other part, is that usually with a swale, there's an operation maintenance plan, you know, that somebody will come up with. And so in this case, they were showing what fabric underneath with riprap, and then that gets filled in with sand over time, you know, and so that probably then, you know, as part of the maintenance would need to be replaced. Or sometimes we see grass swales, and then there's a certain height that, you know, they usually recommend the grass be kept at a certain height to slow down the water and to trap, you know, sands and other things. And then, as I mentioned, the rain garden is we've got that used on other driveways too, where the water goes through like a swale and then it ends in sort of a vegetated area that, you know, is going to allow the water to, you know, penetrate through, but also get absorbed up in the plants, take out some of the pollutants.
That said, probably our next step is to try to schedule a site visit. I know in past, usually Sunday mornings are good for people. If that still works.
That works good for me.
Excellent. I don't know, are Sunday mornings good for you guys? What's coming up first? Sunday, April 6th is the first Sunday in April. Would that work?
I can't do that.
Okay.
Any of the Sundays work. No.
I think I can do the 30th. 30th work for people? Does this coming Sunday work? What time is good? I know we usually do early. At 8:30,
I
is that?
prefer after summer.
Yeah, yeah. Usually. So,
8:30.
9 o'clock, all right? 9 o'clock, fine with?
Okay, that's fine.
And so is there enough room for everyone to pull off? Or what do you suggest for parking?
Plenty of room.
Yeah.
So I just have a continuation form that they can sign.
If you could just, I mean, just throw in a couple of stakes, I mean, it doesn't have to be, rocket science, just approximately where you want, they're looking at putting the basements in, so give them an idea. Just a stake on the side of the truck.
So I'm just going to have you sign a continuation form that you're agreeing to continue this public meeting.
So we're basically looking
So
at, compared to a baseline, if there's no driveway there, what is a driveway and a paved driveway going to introduce in terms of perturbations of the water flow? And what other substances flow in the area? Is that pretty much it?
Well, there is the
an
existing driveway.
It is an existing
Yes, there
driveway.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, just not paved.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like-
And not functioning now, so, well, not functioning from a stormwater standpoint.
Right,
The function if I made it big mostly.
sure does.
Okay, so
Your house.
right now, I don't have anything scheduled for April 15th, but I did receive three new applications today, so I haven't put the legal notices together yet. Do you want to do this one first on the 15th at 7 again?
See why not?
Okay, so you need to continue it to
Okay.
April 15th.
All right, do I even make a motion to do this?
No, I didn't give you that information on there. so-
That's perfectly fine.
Um,
So
I
we're
think just
going
say with the applicant's consent, we're going to.
yeah, with the applicant's consent, we're going to issue a continuation to continue the application for 397 Berlin Road at our next meeting, April 15th, 2014. The commission will now discuss Bishop/Sergeant for 57 Hudson Road. This is not a public hearing, but Jack Sargent is coming to talk to us about the work he's done at this property and what we need to be, and discuss what we need to be able to issue the COC. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is another old project. This is an order of conditions that was issued in 1992, I believe. The work was done shortly after that, but the previous owner never filed for certificate of compliance. My son actually bought the house about 4 years ago. After we bought it, we found out that there was an outstanding order of conditions. And 2 years ago, we decided to take down, just so everybody, the easiest way to visualize this, if you're on Hudson Road, there used to be the model train clubhouse that was on the right-hand side, and the building was falling down. We took the building down as it was collapsing, and then we came in and talked with the commission at that time about just kind of cleaning up some of the junk, because believe it or not, the siltation fence from 1992 was still in the middle of the wetlands, and there was old tires, and there was a whole bunch of other junk. So we asked, we filed for determination, and the commission said, yeah, go ahead and do that stuff. So we actually did that work. But the order of conditions was still outstanding, and it's still a cloud on the title. So what I did at the time is we went out and surveyed it, located what had been done, and confirmed that the culverts that they put in were put in according to the original filing done in '92, and that the grading had been done, which it had been, but was put in as actually as a gravel parking lot. It's now basically a field, because it hasn't been used for a number of years, it's all grown up. So what we would like to do is figure out what information you guys need at this point to go ahead so we can get the order of conditions off the title. The bank would be very happy if we could do that, because it just leaves a cloud there, even though they're not too worried about what's going on. We started that process 2 years ago, and there were some issues that came up with the adjoining property owner, and that he was doing some filling, he was doing some other stuff, and my son and I decided we would just wait till they calm down until they got you guys happy, and then we come back and try and resolve it. So that's why we're back here now, just kind of get that taken care of. So I can show you some photographs, and I can show you the overall plan that was initially filed with the notice of intent, and then I have a
Was there a plan? I just had a written description.
yeah, no, I have a plan that well, was attached to the one that I had. I don't have the actual order of conditions, I just have the original filing. And this was, I'm gonna come around the other side of this big table.
Yeah, I didn't have a plan, I just have the narrative.
Yeah, this was,
Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry, I did, there is a plan. This one? Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
that's the one.
All right.
Let me just kind of go over this with everybody. But he originally, this was the train building, and he also had his business in it, and the house is kind of just off of the plan here. There's what's left of what used to be a farm pond. Before this was built, there was an old barn that was here, and back, I'm going to say, in probably the late '60s, the barn collapsed. They took the barn, they filled the pond in with the barn. And there's an area that basically has water in it from runoff. It's probably very close to the water table, but it only has water when there's heavy rains or sometimes in the spring. They had built this driveway through here, and it was a culvert that collapsed underneath here. And my gut feeling is he used the collapsed culvert as the reason to come in and do the grading, because I've lived here all my life, and I've never seen the water get up high enough to go underneath 385. I don't think it was ever going to get up that high. So, but anyways, he put in a new culvert, and he
But
graded
there's also
this.
drainage coming off
Yeah.
into there, right?
Well, it
So-
comes off and it goes in, there's actually, there's an old stone foundation, there's a hole in the ground, and the water that comes down off of 85 drops into there, and then this would flow out. Theoretically, that's how it
So it's all going to that.
What happens is, this culvert is underneath 85 has been collapsed and blocked for a number of years, so nothing ever goes out of here. When this water comes down, it basically backflows into here. And even with all of that, it still never gets high enough elevation that it would ever flow back, trying to underneath the road. But he did all of this work, and at the time in his filing, he made a point about, he thought it'd be nice if the town came down and fixed the culvert. In a number of years ago, I talked with Brian about it, and he kind of looked at me and said, "You gotta be kidding me, this is never gonna happen." So anyways, this is where the gravel area was done, and he put this culvert in, and I got a couple photographs I can show you there. This basically is looking in this direction. This is the foundation from the old building, which we left the stone foundation is there. And then, like I said, this is the old siltation fence and the tires, but that's the culvert that he installed that goes out through there. The grading was all done. Like I said, the culverts weren't installed, but for whatever reason, they just never went back and asked for the commission to sign off on it. So at this point, this is all grown back up as a field. Now, the guy that owns the land, this was a much larger parcel, this was actually, it's been cut up into lots, but the guy that owns this parcel over here, he parks a couple of trailers down, because the property line actually comes through about like this right now, it cuts across through it. So the pond is basically on his property, and part of the culvert is, and then this drop inlet structure and whatnot is on the lot that my son owns next door.
So which properties were involved in the earlier commission?
This was the original property, but at the time it was about a 6-acre parcel. It was cut up along with some adjacent property to, I guess, about 7 or 8 lots.
Did it
For the shared drive, for the,
include this one?
that common drive that goes
Yeah,
up.
this is, what actually happened was subsequent to this, lot now is actually, that right there is this building, this is the house next door. But this was one large lot, and you can see it's been cut up into all these other pieces, and it's added to another larger piece out back to make up some other ones. So that,
I'm just wondering whether the guy down here is doing as in bearing the original condition.
What was your question, Jim?
Whether the guy to the south, what he's doing, parking various things and possibly affecting the hearing, whether that has any bearing on the results of the order of condition or whether it's all of the property north.
Well, I don't think his actions today have any bearing on this order of conditions.
Okay.
We have had some discussions with him. Were you here when we had this discussion? No. So as Jack said, was it 2 years ago then?
It was 2 years ago.
So when they came in to do some cleanup work and then the neighbor who's on the south side, he was thinking he was going to maybe fill a little bit of an area to raise it to make it better for parking because he has horses, and so he wanted to be able to put his trailers there, and also there's people who come in and park sort of in that area, and he was looking at maybe eliminating access for other people, I think, from parking through there. When he heard that he was going to have to deal with the commission, he said, I'm not doing it. So he just took out the stuff that he had started to put down, which he hadn't filed for. He put up some reversion control until it stabilized, and now I see him still parking stuff there, but he's not.
The hay bales are still there.
Yeah.
He has hay bales along the side of the driveway, and they kind of cut it this way. And like I said, he's got 2 horse, well, I don't know if they're horse trailers. He's had various different farm trailers that he parks in here occasionally.
Yeah, I think initially I didn't know it was 2 separate parcels, and then, because it looked like the flow always went, or the traffic always went all the way
Yeah.
through.
Well, that's just it, at one time it did.
Yeah.
Like I said, when I was a kid, the pond actually was up in here. And they filled that in, and when they filled this in, then, this is the next lower area that ended up being here, where it ponded afterwards. But,
Yeah, I mean, the flow comes off the hill, so it's definitely the low spot, and it is
yeah,
a wetland area
it's coming
today.
off of this hill, and it comes, this is all down slope from here, and, from here, so that's the one low spot. It's predominantly a very gravelly area, so I think most of the water just percolates down through. It probably does end up coming over here and headed towards West Pond, but like I said, it has never, in my life.
Not through the pipe, right?
Yeah, they put the pipe in, almost 100 years ago now. I don't think it ever did anything.
So Jack, did you say you have some of the survey information on the the
Yeah.
inlet elevations, or?
I didn't remember if I gave you this. We did this 2
I
years
know,
ago.
I think you did, but I didn't go down and pull that file
All right.
because it's been archived
So
now.
what we did is we just went out and shot the elevations on it just quickly. This was 2 years ago. And then just to confirm that it was done pretty much in correspondence with what he originally had filed. I mean, basically, again, the color underneath was fixed where it was. This is the drop inlet that I was talking about. It's a fieldstone box. It's like 4 feet deep, and all the pipes come into it. This pipe was put in a long time ago. It's an old clay pipe that the town of Bolton put in. And then this is the new pipe that he put in across here, and the elevations checked with what he had established to put in here within a couple of hundreds. So that basically, like I said, the idea would be we drain across and then it goes out through here. But this is at 92.7. The invert to get out of here is at 92.9. So it's got if you look at those photographs I had, you can kind of see that basically the water is going to come up in elevation just to get to that invert before it goes out. Typically, this thing is only like 6 inches to a foot deep, and it never seems to get any bigger than that. So the water really doesn't flow out of it, but he did put it all in, and it was put in according to the plan, and the grades basically check with what he wanted to do. The the area that's in here right now was where he had gravelled all this. This is all basically a field. There's a tremendous amount of, look at this, you can see the bamboo, you call it.
Oh, the Japanese knotweed.
Knotweed up through here. And we've been trying to keep that down. And what we've been doing is once or twice a year, mow down in this area so that it seems that we keep it mowed, it keeps the bamboo out, although I think it's a losing battle, but we're trying to keep it down.
I think we talked about that when I did the request for determination,
Yeah.
right? That,
Yeah.
again, it was worth trying
Yeah.
because.
Well, we got an area behind the house where it was all
Right.
that. And my son mows that just like a lawn, and that seems to have killed it out as long as you keep after it. But everywhere else, it's unbelievable how fast it spreads in. So we're trying to keep it down in here because it's kind of a nice little flat area. This has all been cleaned up and stuff now, so it looks nice to the old stone walls.
So the order of conditions being as old as it was didn't require anything specific to be submitted with the request for certificate of compliance. But so since not everybody was going to be familiar with it, this was Jack's suggestion was that he come in and at least share with you what he has for information and see whether that's sufficient or whether you think you're going to need anything else to be able to act on the request. So we have a form, there's like a state form.
Yeah, no, I got the form.
You got the form, okay.
Actually, what I don't have is the DEP number. I couldn't find that. So
Okay, I have that.
You probably got it, so I
Yeah.
can get that
Yeah.
information from you now.
And then, does anybody think that they want to do a site visit to see it?
Have you seen it?
I have seen it, but not now in a couple of years, and not with the as-built information in front of me. I think when Jack presented this a couple of years ago, I met you and we looked at everything then. And it all makes sense to me at that point, but I'd like to get another copy of the plan, just to go with the request into this file.
Yeah, I'll give you copies of all the stuff with the file, yeah.
And, he had more history on it than I had ever heard told, the barn that had been there, and,
Well, actually, this used to belong to, back, not this turn of the century, but the turn of the century before was, my family used to own that. It was a dairy farm, and they dug the pond for the cows. And I remember hearing the stories about digging the hole and, the whole thing. The horse that fell in, and, so I have a lot of history about what happened.
Yeah. I think, and the photographs would be helpful too, just to have, if you can submit those as well.
See, we need it, if you could circulate to us the original order of conditions. I know there's not much in there, but if it's something that we could read through what was supposed to be done, maybe schedule a site visit to actually go out and look and see, how it is now, and then possibly just report back to Carol. Eventually, if we have any concerns or if there's anything that really stands out, or if we think, it's pretty close and we can give you a better idea how to proceed.
Well, if he submitted all the information, and we set that up, set up a site visit, then at least for the next meeting, we'd be able to tell him if he needed something else. possibly.
Yeah.
Supervisor, anyone?
So, yeah, you're around Sunday morning?
Well, every time it's good for you guys.
How about before the
Yeah, it would make a lot more sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 8:30 okay, right?
Yeah, that's
It should be relatively quick.
I'll be there.
Good work.
Okay?
Give me
So-
the minutes.
You're doing that this Sunday then?
Yeah.
Jack, you'll bring this plan, I'm not going to be here after tomorrow in the office for a week, so if you can bring that and then submit it with the rest of you have the form, and this
I got the
DEP
form.
form?
Yeah,
Okay, let me just give you the phone number right now so you have that.
The 30th.
112-174.
Okay, 1, 2, and 1, 7.
Now, what I didn't have
It is
is
57.
the record, oh wait, I do. You have the recording information?
I don't
That's
have it
good,
yet.
all right, because that's Rose picture. I guess
Well,
About halfway between where I live and
14760, I believe it's a 7, I can write it.
Okay.
Page 144.
All right, I can check on it tomorrow.
Okay, let's just watch.
Great. So 8:30 Sunday morning.
Yeah.
We'll be there. There's plenty of places to park, so you don't have to worry about that.
But on the Saturday, yeah.
And then, do you want to let him know whether you want him to come on the 15th? I mean, he can come anyway, but if you want specifically to him to be there, then you can let him know whether you think you need him to come. Or they can just report to him and make a decision.
Yeah, it's hard, it's hard to say. I think if we report back to you, it might be a question of maybe possibly just emailing him and say, yeah, maybe you can come in and answer some questions, or maybe.
Carol's on the track me down. She's good at that.
Okay.
All right, that's fine. Thank you.
Thanks.
email because Bob wanted to be here for that. And Alan's not here.
Update on Five Shire, or we can go through minutes.
I sent those out too,
Yep.
so yep, if you want to do that.
Everybody have a chance to review the March 18th minutes? Anybody have any problems with the March 18th minutes? I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from our March 18th, 2014 meeting. All those in favor? Aye. Yeah. Bills.
Yes, we did. So we have one bill from Leonard Engineering for work on the Five Shire Dam. Includes a lot of the work getting the bid contract together and the site visit for the pre-bid meeting. And then we have one bill to reimburse Jim for his training at the MSC annual meeting. They can just send it on. So one question, sort of an announcement slash question that came up is for Houghton Farm, for the trail loop that was done by Ben Sikansky as an Eagle Scout project. His mother's was contacting me because she's interested in doing something to commemorate the project with a sign. She was wondering what kind of signs, if anything, were going to be put up there or be required. And there is a trailhead parking sign that's required in the decision. I forget whether it was our decision or in the Foster decision. And so she's thinking of just doing a small plaque that would be, some commemoration. I just wanted to make sure we don't really have a standard on the trailheads or a standard on what is appropriate with the Eagle Scouts, but it seemed like it was fairly innocuous.
Is that for his work?
Yeah, yeah.
Located at the trail head?
Right, right. So I talked to Bob Kiley, and he is happy to do the sign, which is, he knows he needs to do that anyway. And I contacted Milton Signs, who we use to do our conservation area signs, and he's given a quote, and has said that he can do that. And then we would just put like if she goes forward and does the commemorative sign, the plaque, we just put it on one of the posts probably, or on the bottom or on the side or something like that. We could just screw it in. And at this point, I didn't have exact language, so she's not sure if she's going to use something that the Scouts already have like on their website and just have its name, or whether she's going to have it written up. So that sounds fine to you guys? Yep. Okay, and then I think the only other announcement I just had was, well, there's two others actually. One is that there's going to be a scenic road hearing coming up, the planning board, April 9th, and that's for Warner Road, where Kendall Homes, who did the Northwood subdivision, they're doing another lot up that area, and so they're having to propose to remove some stone wall and cutting some trees to look at the driveway coming in off Warner Road. And the other sort of more big announcement was that Mark Case was able to get out on Forbush Mill Road, and he's removed the trees on the dam. And he took some pictures. Did you see it today? Was anybody there?
No, what did he do?
I guess he started yesterday and today. So I'll just take some pictures so that you guys can see it before we show them tonight. It did, and I had been following him regularly, and I don't know, but we allotted up to $3,000. I know, he said if he had done it the way that he'd been advised by some people was to get a crane, it was like $4,000 just to have the crane in there, so he had people climbing the trees to cut them. So let's see where. So just above the soccer field. So you can pass it around if you want to see, because then you just.
So how many trees?
Well, we had one tree that fell, and when, the concern had been that this one was actually not so bad in that it fell right across the dam, and it didn't uproot and cause a hole in the dam, but that was our fear. And so, there were, if you look at the stumps, there's a number of large trees. So that we had decided, the commission had gone out and marked them, so he knew which ones that we really wanted to have down. And then there was one, I think on the very far side, this is off topic, but Trailhead Parking that we did at Danforth, which didn't have the loop trail, didn't have a trail at the time. So the other new one will have, also will say Open Farm Trail Loop. Just because I sent information on that on this. But I think on the very far side of the stream, there was one, not a large tree, but something smaller that we didn't take out, we looked at it. It was really related to the stone wall, not so much the dam. I didn't think it was going to have an impact, so we didn't take that one.
So how many trees total?
You know what, I didn't count them actually. I went out just before I came and I didn't have
Too
my
much
picture.
damage you got, I mean, the ground was frozen for the
Yeah.
last couple days, really nice.
Yeah. So he said basically, the conditions were finally good. It wasn't so much snow that he couldn't get in there. It might be too deep to kind of get to the work you need to do, and then it's frozen enough. So. Yeah, and I know that, he said that the neighbor across the street, had been watching, and I didn't get any calls from them, so they were probably good.
That's a plus.
Ways.
Are there announcements or correspondence?
That's not on the agenda already.
Have you ever had a chance to get in touch with the council?
I have been in touch with them, but not since our last meeting last week. So I did not set anything up yet. Although with the ground still frozen a little bit, it might have worked, or would have done something this weekend. I don't know. Do you want me to try to see if you could get something in on Sunday, or I know it's going to be really warm again on Saturday, so.
Yeah, I wouldn't try for Sunday too.
Okay. I haven't heard anything back from them.
I just wanted to be sure, I know you were.
Yeah, this week I did not get to that.
Yeah, just kind of waiting for that. Is there any other updates on Fifeshire?
Last week I had updated you, right, that I got all the signatures. Is that true? So the only update, did I update you last week? No, I can't remember now, but the contractor did agree to extend the time that we could award the bid to April 22nd. So based on when we opened the bid, we had 60 days to award it, but because we didn't have the easements in place, because we didn't have the plan prepared, he agreed to continue that for another 30 days. And so that's the only update. I know they did go out and survey last week, so that's probably new, right? I think they got out maybe Thursday. We met Tuesday. I think I called them on Wednesday with the information. I think they did the survey work Thursday, and then they had to go back Friday. So Leonard Engineer met with them to make sure that they had, for sure where we wanted everything to be going, so that the easement was going to be exactly where we wanted to go. The homeowner at 14 Collins Road was present, and they met with her a little bit, and so they went over it with her as well. So should be coming together. I should be getting the plan. Probably by the time I get back, we'll have the plan, and then I can just get the final agreements, and we can award the bid, and then they'll hopefully be ready to start, May 15th, or whenever they're.
So they eventually did agree to lower it.
That's what, yes.
Because I remember going on a walk
Yep,
a couple of years ago. I don't know when it was.
yep. So it's going to be lowered so that it's non-jurisdictional, but it'll still be a dam, and still retain the water.
Is that what they're doing down on 117?
In Lancaster, I think they're taking out that dam. And the same contractor is doing that work as the one, the bid on our job. So if you notice it,
Yeah, I've been watching.
I haven't been down there in a while. But I did see it listed in on some documentation. I was reading some newsletter as a project. Yeah, I mean, I'm not positive that they're taking the whole thing up, but I thought that that's what their
It looks
project
like
was.
it.
Yeah. Pretty sure.
It's right on one side.
Right on one side, the very base of the
Yeah.
hill where the hot dog covers.
Yeah, I pass by it and I don't pay enough attention while I'm driving.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a lot of dam removal projects. I mean, I know the organization that I belong to did, and I think it was 2 summers ago, but we did a field trip down to Plymouth to sort of see that whole channel that was recreated from when the dam was taken up. And then somebody was mentioning another one out in Turner Falls that they're doing, which has a lot of historic structure related to it. And so it's more like a bridge kind of a dam, very, very involved with lots of issues. But they're working on taking it up.
Once everybody sees, it's better to get rid of it, or like we're doing lower it. So, yeah, maintenance behind it, keep it, it's expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, even getting to this point has been expensive, but hopefully the maintenance won't be so bad now in the future. So,
Sure enough.
that's
Looks like Bob too.
Yes, it does. While Bob's settling in, we have a couple minutes before we told Andy that we're going to start to just introduce yourself to Christy then. She's interested in maybe joining the commission or.
On the other side of the table. Go ahead. You want me to introduce myself?
No,
Okay.
okay.
I just moved to town about 4 years ago into John McCollum's old house farm.
Oh.
Big old house, lots of interesting things going on with it all the time.
Is it one?
Yeah, it totally is. But they're good ghosts.
Where is that?
Right on
Wilder Road.
Wilder Road,
You know where that,
Oh, okay.
that big house with the farm?
Yeah.
The other day, they move around the furniture upstairs.
Oh, wow.
They really do. So anyway, so I was living in New Hampshire for a while in a very tiny town of about 20 people and was on the Conservation Commission there for a few years. I didn't really, we didn't end up, I don't know what we ended up, the main thing we ended up voting on was putting in a bridge on the road over a street so we would not, ruin water so much, which ended up being a good thing. Anyway, that was a learning experience, but I would say I learned the whole time. I mean, I'm not only an expert, but I'm interested in what goes on, and I don't know the town very well, so a lot of these things
It's great, we didn't
I
know
have to,
that.
yeah, exactly,
Find
get to know quickly,
Yeah.
yeah, so.
I think I joined the I'm Bob Cohen,
Mhm,
and I joined the Conservation Commission 3 or 4 years after I moved in.
mhm.
And when we first started talking about the different projects, we were in the selectmen's meeting room in Town Hall, and there was a map on the wall, and I'd have to go up and look to see where the street was. Because I didn't know any of the conservation areas, I didn't know any of the streets. Which is coming to means that you learn pretty quickly. And the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissioners offers courses, which I've taken some and other people have taken some. And so you pick up fairly quickly. And of course, we have Carol Tolino because she's our resident expert. And when I joined, I was most interested in acquiring more conservation land and conservation restrictions. But to be honest, we spend most of our time with the Wetlands Protection Act. And it's complicated, but it's interesting. And I've enjoyed it. I've been on for 4 years now. So.
Well, actually, I had taken some classes at the Wildflower Society for wetlands delineation, so I'm supposed to know some of the plants that do define those areas, so that was another thing.
Yeah, that's good, and you have to keep that kind of thing
But I
up,
do,
you
yeah.
know, which the commission does a lot of the delineation site visits, and I end up not doing them as much, and so I'm always like, all right, I gotta remember my plants when I go back out. But the site visits are really another way, you know, you really get to see both finding your way to wherever the site visit's gonna be held, you know, and then seeing, you know, more of the landscape, not just looking at the plans. And a lot of the time, a lot of the projects are presented by actual engineers, and they have all the information. Tonight, we had the homeowners, you know, and so they're not as familiar with the whole process, and so, you know, having to sort of give them some more information and kind of help walk them through it a little bit. So it's a little different when you don't have the engineer.
I've only been in town since November 2009, so that's about the same as you have. And I've taken some courses recently. I went to a conference. I signed up for another one on wetlands delineation in So it's my education is a working progress as
Yeah.
well. But we each know different parts. Janet, who's not here, knows more about the biology.
Uh-huh.
I think that most of it.
Or body. And you are?
I grew up in town,
Oh, very good.
so
You know it all then.
I know where most of the sidewalks are.
Yeah.
But I've been on the commission for
She's a permanent member.
How
She's
many
a
years?
lifetime
You've been on
commission.
20 years?
about that, yeah.
Wow.
20? About that, yeah. But I take time off too. My family owns one of the orchards in town.
Mm,
So fall, I'm not here.
great. Which one?
Bolton Spring Farm, just on the east end of town.
I've seen you, I think, in a Four Winds thing. Do you do that with the kids?
It's what?
At the school, the Four Winds program?
No, I was thinking of somebody else. I'm Maria Berman, I've been on the commission 5 years now, and love to have each one. Interested, we always need people.
Yeah, no, the only thing I'm finding it might be an issue is that we like to go, but we have a place in New Hampshire, so we love to go to almost every weekend we can get away to, so that's the only thing I want to figure out. But I'm here more now because my daughter is doing stuff. More and more.
I was gonna say, the weekends are not all the time. Site visits, especially as you get into spring and summer, can be done after work hours when we have more light.
In the winter, it really comes down.
Yeah.
Actually, we do more, unless it's a really big project that we usually do on the weekends. Otherwise, we do try to get them in after work, where it's in like longer.
But it varies, and not everybody can make it at the same time. I mean, some, like tonight, came up pretty well, but we have no idea whether Bob will be able to make it or not. But every once in a while, I'll go out with somebody because I don't typically do the weekends. And so as a follow-up, I may want to see the site if it's a big, especially if it's a bigger project, or if, you know, if it's okay with the people that, you know, somebody's going to stop by on their own, or sometimes if it's small enough, we will just say that, you know, is it okay if we just stop by when we have time? So it varies. It doesn't have to be.
And then right now, my daughter's so busy today right now. So, boom, boom, boom. But that will be that forever.
And this spring, our schedule is a little off. Normally, it's the 1st and the 3rd, you know, which ends up helping everybody to kind of plan, you know, so like Bob travels a little bit, and I don't know if Brian's schedule at this point.
Yeah, it's opened up, but yeah, I have kids as well too. It's, yeah.
So things have to sometimes change, but in knowing, usually we book it out for at least, you know, a few months, so that you can try to accommodate that, and then there's times, like Laura said, in the fall, she's not here at all for those meetings unless we have to desperately drag her in, and we really try not to, but you can miss a meeting, but if the project goes on for a while, that's where we run into complications. If you miss too many meetings, you can't actually meet the intent of the law and vote on the project. So we're trying to work on minimizing the number of meetings we have continued, and then try to have everybody catch up if they have had to miss a meeting.
You don't have to come to all the meetings, but you have to come to most.
You always catch it on TV too.
That's true. Nice, go ahead.
So do you want me to invite?
Yes,
Spencer?
invite them in. I saw them out there.
On
They were
Saturday,
stacked.
Sunday,
Oh, yes.
actually.
Okay.
You know where the first one
I
is?
actually, ate with this person.
Route 85,
Yeah, oh, the one right up near the Girl Scouts?
where the Boy Scout camp driveway is, going to Little Pond.
Yeah,
It's right there before that.
Cool. If you gentlemen are going to open up maps and stuff, you might want to push that table forward so we can all see it together. And you can move the chairs up with it. It's a nice room. It's actually the nicest room.
No kidding.
Got an meeting in town.
They normally have meetings booked in here on Tuesday nights, the fire department.
That's it.
So no, we don't usually get to have this space.
Okay. Terrific.
Why don't you just introduce yourself for the record because it's being recorded.
You know what, it's actually only being recorded by Backhoe. I didn't even bring the table
Oh.
over, so
So why don't you still introduce yourself?
I'm Alan Shockett here on the Century Mill Estates subdivision.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Andy Benson.
Thank you.
Where should we begin? Okay, as I'm sure you're all well aware, we're trying for months to get the ability to put in the crossing over the wetland on Road C, Old Stone Road, Old Stone Circle. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. We just missed, and we're not able to put that in. So that creates an interesting issue of how do we get Old Stone Circle, the road in, until the work can commence on the crossing, which can't start until July 1, I guess, under the terms. So what we are hoping to do, planning to do, is run some equipment from Road B called Cider Circle across a strip of open space to get to the opposite side of where the crossing is.
Do you have that mapped out exactly where you're going?
Yeah, actually, that's one of the things we wanted to go over with everybody so that we can explain what the plan is here, so we can get access to it.
What was the problem that caused you to have to come to this? What happened with the original?
We ran out of time. We were hoping to do it over the winter. And
You had to go when the ground was frozen.
when the ground, yeah, and unfortunately, with the time it took to get engineering reviews and Concom reviews, and it just took months to get everybody happy with the narrative, and we just ran out of time. And finally, when the engineers signed off on the final plan, I think that weekend it was 55 degrees. You know, it just, we missed it by like a week. So, as I said, we can't do it until July. Okay, where shall we leave it to Andy to explain?
We're going to cross the open space here.
That's the only place you're going to cross?
So then you're not going from the end of Road B, which is what Alan was just saying?
Yeah, well,
We're going to come, there's an existing path from, what doesn't show on here is the driveway for the
The water system?
well.
Yeah.
And right in, probably right here, is an existing path. And it comes down and goes about halfway to about here. Not on their lot,
Just off their lot?
just off their lot.
Yeah.
And I'm probably not drawing it right, but if I had to guess, now back in here is where the septic system is that we built. There's an existing path that from the septic system goes this way and then goes right up here. So the only area that we would be going on that doesn't have a path is right here.
so that would minimize any,
Okay, so then you're not going on lot 52, you're really going off.
Around
this- Okay.
I mean, I could ask them to cross over their yard. and
I just wanted to clarify, because that's how it had been explained, I think.
turns out we don't need to do it,
Yeah,
which is
well,
good.
I mean,
Is there somebody living there?
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Beautiful house.
they would let me, I mean, we get along well, and I'm sure if I said to them,
You want to drive, can I drive over your septic system?
Well, they would.
well, not over
Yeah,
the
it's
side,
right,
but,
right,
I mean, in reality, this person here has not put in their back, they built their own house, and they didn't do their yard work in the back. So, I mean, we could come down here, cross over here, and then like hug the tree line right here. But it's easier.
So how many feet, so how, that first, Andy, that first cart path, how many feet is that off the paved road. Isn't this a paved road here, the water system? Or is it
Yeah.
stone? Stone paved, that's what I thought. So how many feet do you need to go from here to here?
I'm gonna guess 200 feet.
200 feet.
Under
And
that-
how wide is it?
That's an existing
This is
car.
our path.
How wide is the existing cart path? 20 feet wide? So it's pretty wide, so you don't have to widen it anymore. And then, how many feet do you have to go where there's no cart path?
Roughly 150 feet.
150, and how wide are you gonna make that?
We're planning on just cutting down like enough trees just to get by.
Yeah, but how wide? That's what I wanna know.
Machines are probably 12 feet.
So you have to cut like 14 feet or something, 15 feet? And then the path,
I mean, and basically, that would involve not cutting 15 feet worth of trees. What we'll do is we'll meander so we don't have to cut very many.
What's caliber of the trees in there?
They vary, so we'll cut things.
and the cart path continues after that?
Yeah, then there was an existing cart path that went from here all the way down here and then up.
So this is the cart path here?
Yeah.
And how wide is that cart path? Is that 20 feet?
I actually submitted it.
Yeah.
There are pictures that we
In
sent
the
out.
pictures, we couldn't tell how wide
I
it
can show you if you want to see it.
I saw the pictures.
Oh.
It's
But
just
I-
you can't tell
I
how
can't tell how
wide.
wide
It's
they are.
probably,
They actually look like 10 feet
I'm
from the
gonna
pictures,
guess
to be
it's
honest.
20 feet wide. It's pretty wide. We traveled on this with machinery
Yeah.
for years.
Before the conservation restrictions.
Yeah, and there were cart paths throughout the whole property.
Yeah.
Because the people that bought this land originally, there were 5 different sellers when I bought it that we sort of assembled. But one of the families was the Larkin family, Larkin lumber. So they basically bought the land just to cut trees down and log it. So there were logging trails, and then the other family was Lamson lumber. And then,
They must have cut those trees down a long time ago, because that's pretty thick in there, isn't
yeah, but they had logging trails.
it? Okay, to get
So
to other
this-
places.
There's trail systems
They're all over town.
all over the place, yeah. So, there's a trails, as I was saying, these people had on their houses were probably like, I'm guessing, in this area here. And
I have the septic plan for that one.
their driveway.
Would that be helpful?
Well, I mean, I don't know precisely what you get, I guess. But, and then, there's a trail that actually, right off the driveway goes like that, and then goes all the way up to here. There's no well-defined trail here. This is extremely well-defined. This is a real trail.
Up to there, and then it disappears, the trail.
Yeah, and then
It starts again, but it's not as well
oh, no,
defined.
this is extremely well-defined.
Okay.
This is extremely well-defined.
And it's fairly steep on the backside there, is that true?
This isn't steep, and, I mean, it's not that steep, but it's.
I was just looking at the septic plan, it looked like it was, well,
Which way does it lean to? Towards
It's
the,
going downhill this
Yeah.
way, and then it goes back up. It's this is the local.
it doesn't show enough of it going beyond the septic, but this was lot 56, here's into the driveway, and then this is leaching field. And then anyway, the grade, starts looking like you're going up the hill through here, a little bit, or something.
Actually, I mean, I do have those pictures on my computer if you wanted to see.
Well, it's hard to get the sense of where,
Right,
from the pictures,
right.
where it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
This doesn't show it like that coming off of the driveway, I know what you're saying. But in the subdivision plans, there's some trails that are shown, but not all trails. And I don't think I saw anything that went in this direction. If you look at like sheet 38, I don't think you see a trail on that one going along the side. You don't really see anything going through there.
It starts up, I'm assuming, that, the driveway is in this area here.
yeah.
It's the trail. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
see, that was
yeah, oh.
going
try to get on the trail here and then go up like
No,
that?
we're gonna,
Here,
we're
right?
gonna, yeah, it's basically like here. and
There's a
it
trail
comes
right there.
down, and it goes like this. And then I'm not sure on here where the septic is, but I can
Here.
tell you, it's gotta be right around here.
Is this the lot line?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The septic, it's gotta be right there, because just to the side of the septic
Yeah,
is
it's,
the trail.
where this point is here, it's off that direction,
Okay.
because here's that point there.
So it's right here, it's gotta be right there, because a 90-degree turn from the septic is this trail. So, so we'll follow this trail to about here, and then go like this. So if you wanted to know actual distance, this is what, 40 scale?
Are those official fingers?
I have a scale.
I'd say about 160 feet.
That you have to go through, there's no
But
trail?
then where, this trail's going in that direction, so where do you go then?
Well, in the pictures that we sent you, this trail goes that direction, and what's not shown is there's also a trail that goes this way. Right up there.
To which sheet's the next match there, 41? So somewhere at the back there.
If the town would buy like a 60-inch TV, we could put Google Maps on it and just scroll through.
Part of the problem.
Glasses would be good.
Oh, it's-
But it doesn't show a whole lot.
Not glass, I
You go into some point
magnifiers, I don't
here
need
to
glasses.
something to get into that long.
Isn't that the same definition?
I mean, I could show you,
Depends on the video.
We're require everybody to bring it.
what's that, this is road seeds. So, I mean, we're talking about basically going from here, well, it's easier to see the overall plan. but when I was at. Once you get to the back of, these are very close. Down here, they're very
So
close.
one of those in the Smithsonian.
What's that?
So one of those in the Smithsonian.
Why, what's wrong with this?
Nothing.
It's
in
got
the
some edge to
Smithsonian.
it, and
Yeah, it actually,
Is that 15 years old?
no, 5, but it lasted,
No.
you know what, it's a solid state drive, and it lasted me a long time.
Yeah, we beat the heck out of the kids and stuff.
But it,
Only 5 years.
but it doesn't have as much.
I
think I was
yeah,
six, seven,
figure
yeah.
dating.
6 or
I know
7.
ones in town, it's like 12 or 14, it looks more modern than
Mhm.
To be modern, we should just send a drone over there.
Yeah.
I sent it to you, right?
Yeah.
Talking about.
Yeah. Okay.
that. So what exactly, what equipment is going to be passing over this?
Well, we're not gonna be doing in and out stuff.
Okay, once it's over there, it's going to stay there?
Yeah, except for the tree cutter. The tree cutter will go in and out, but his is
How often does he go in and out?
once.
It goes
Oh,
in
just
before.
once? He goes over
Cuts.
and then he leaves?
So you're gonna leave, stockpile like you were
Yeah.
before?
Yep.
On those same lots that you had described before?
All right, and how big is the tree cutter?
Like a tractor size,
So it's not that big of a
it's
machine?
rubber tire.
But it's not that wide?
No.
How high is it?
8 feet.
So it's not that high either? And what else is going to go over?
An excavator,
Okay, so that's a big machine. How big, how high is that?
pretty high.
Okay,
That's a one-shot deal.
it's going to stay there?
And, I mean, if you want, we can put rubber mats down. We
We might, but I'm just, well, now thinking what damage that might do to the canopy that's above there.
But we're gonna
If it's
cut
that
it.
high.
We're gonna.
You're going to cut the canopy?
But on the existing, I think you're asking too. You've got an
Yeah.
existing car path, but if you're bringing a high piece of equipment, that
It's
you're
going to
wondering
hit, it's
whether
going
you
to,
need
it might hit
to-
branches that are off the cart path. That's
kind
what
of
I'm asking.
old growth forest now, somewhat. The canopy's kind of high up
Yeah.
there, if I remember.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Well, I just know, like,
So-
DPW, when they've done projects for us, they've had to limb things, so that's, I guess, what I think Bob's asking.
Yeah. And what else is going over beside the excavator?
Truck.
What kind of a truck?
Truck.
You mean a big dump truck or something?
Yeah.
One of those ones with like the open back?
Dump trailers
And how wide are those? Some of those are very big, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, not wide, probably 12 feet wide.
Okay. So that's almost the same as the excavator. Those two. And that's just going once and not coming out.
Correct.
Okay.
With the rocks,
What?
with the rocks in it, it's empty.
With the rocks.
It's a big truck. I've seen those.
Yeah,
Those are big trucks. Those are not trucks that drive on the street very far. A lot of times those are hauled down
I
on a
mean,
flatbed.
we sent, I mean, we did send, let's see. I mean, we brought, I rented these mats for the crossing.
Okay.
We were supposed to add, so I have approximately, I had enough to cover the wetland.
Okay.
12 times 50, so 600 square feet. So, I mean, frankly, there's not much point covering the existing path.
Well,
But I'm
I
talking
mean, I
about
guess the question is whether, that's why I think Bob's asking the question is, what is the damage going to be? The restriction requires you to restore the area, so I think he's trying to figure out, like, what are we going to be damaging? What will we need to restore, or see that you restore?
I mean,
160 to, times
these are the pictures.
20 is 3,200. See if we just make the mats 12 feet wide. Let's do it that way instead of 20. So we have 160 times 20. So you need, I'm doing 20 again, I meant 12. 12 times 160.
I mean, these trails are pretty wide, maybe
Yeah.
wider than I said.
But you still need, for the part where there isn't a cart path, you need about 2,000 square feet of matting, not 600. If you're gonna mat 12 feet wide by 160 feet long,
Unless
that's
you move.
1,920.
Yeah, unless you move
You mean as it goes through?
Yeah.
And then move them back for the next one, each time a machine comes?
Only do it once.
I mean, it's just,
I guess you can do that.
What's, I don't get, is there, there's no other equipment that's going over, just those three pieces of equipment? Like, how are you bringing the pipes over?
we're not.
So you're not going to start doing
Well,
drainage?
yeah, we'll probably, I mean, the tree cutting's gonna take probably a couple, two, three weeks, then we're gonna stump, pull all the stumps, and we're gonna strip the loam, the subsoil, and, we weren't really planning on that.
And you do that with just an excavator? You don't have like some sort of bulldozer front end loader or something like that too?
We mainly use an excavator, we might bring a bulldozer over.
Okay, well, that's what we want to know. And that would stay over there too, once it goes
Yeah, I
over?
mean, I'm not planning to be,
Is it going to go over at the same time, the bulldozer, or is it going to come over at a different time? This is
Does
just a question.
it go over on a truck or is it?
no, it just goes over one track.
So, then what are you planning to do? I guess I'm just not sure what part of the phase 4 then you're trying, because that was another part of
Well,
the discussion
I
later.
mean-
But so what are you going to be actually doing then? You're cutting the trees, and you're stripping the loam and the soil?
Yep.
Okay, and then what else?
And then, well, that's quite a bit of work right there. I mean,
It
this is
doesn't bring you
already,
to July, though.
well, it's already April. So you got April, May,
2 months. Never did.
yeah.
You got 3 months. Okay. And that cutting the trees and stripping the loam is going to take you 3 months?
Well, then you could bring the ground up to some, proper
But you need to
separation.
bring material in for that.
Well, we'll have material probably over there.
From where?
The, cuts.
So you don't have to bring any material in that it's not already there?
I mean, if we'll probably have rock pile and we'll end up making different crusher and,
So that's another machine that you're probably going to need.
depends on the timing. I mean, if the,
Yeah.
maybe if things are dried out enough, instead of July 1, you'll be able to let me start June 15th.
We might, if it's dried out. We get a dry spray.
I mean, we can build detention basins, there's a lot of work.
I know, but I think that's what we're trying to figure out. What is the equipment?
What is the
What's coming
equipment?
over?
So we got
What are
an
you bringing in?
excavator,
And
we
so
got
you think you have enough material on the site to start bringing the road up if you get to that point? But for the detention basins, then you're just excavating. You don't have to bring anything in, except for, again, I was asking about pipes, so you're not bringing any
I
of the
mean-
pipes. I'm just thinking of your other
Yeah.
phase. I mean, you had the pipes lined,
Right,
the edge,
right.
pretty early on.
So what was the other machine after the bulldozer? What other machine you're talking about? A rock crush. Describe the rock crush?
It's a track machine.
It's a what?
It's similar, it's got tracks just like an excavator. It's
And how wide is it?
12 feet.
Those are all good. And how high?
About 10 feet high.
Now, the track machine is much harder on the terrain.
Actually, the theory of a track machine is that it spreads the weight. So, other than leaving, minor, it actually spreads the weight very well. Because they get big long tracks as opposed to, a tire, the only thing that's touching is this much. But on the track machine, big.
So,
So,
Andy, all this,
weight is significant.
So the force per unit area is lower.
I don't know.
But Jim, is your concern that it rips up the ground more? Is that what you're saying? Or-
That's my question.
Yeah.
Does it?
it depends. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't.
I mean, keep in mind, these are existing trails that were used with track machines previously.
Except for the 160 feet.
Yes.
All right. So, so the excavator's going to stay there, the truck is going to stay there.
When I say stay there, we're not doing any,
It's not crossing, all I'm saying is,
we're not doing in and out, like trucking in and out. Is it possible it could come out once or twice? Yeah.
well, that's what I want to know.
But it's not, we're not planning on like,
Every day going in.
yeah,
coming out.
we're not gonna have trucks delivering material like where we're doing.
I just want to know how often these things are going in and out.
Very
Is that-
infrequently.
What is infrequent? Actually, I don't know enough to, is it frequent? First you told me that the excavator's going to go over, it's going to stay there. The log cutter was the only thing that was coming back out. So now we found other machines, are those going back in now?
Over a 3-month period, if it came out 6 times.
All right, so you expect all the stuff to go in and out 6 times, is it?
I'm not expecting it really to come out at all, but I'm saying.
So it could come out up to 6 times.
Yeah.
So the idea of rolling the same piece of mat over and over, is that practical for that many times?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's practical to mat ground that's already been run on. No.
Yeah, we're talking about the 160 feet.
Right.
We're not saying matting the
Yeah.
cart path,
I mean, it's just
we're matting the
dirt.
160
It's just dirt,
feet.
though, because it's not wetlands or anything.
No, but it's
Trees-
plant habitat.
Um,
It's not just dirt.
what
It's
happens if-
vegetation.
But I mean, like eventually the Concom asked to have trail systems in the open space built.
Our trail systems aren't 10 to 12 feet wide, and they're not 10 to 12 feet high, we don't.
Well, you still,
cut
if
them
you
in.
want a trail system, you're gonna need an excavator to build it.
No,
No, we
have.
don't use
No,
excavators.
it's all handwork and it's all very minor.
These are like walking paths. We say trail system, it's a walking path. It might be this wide, and it still has the roots in, and most of the rocks. It's just a very primitive path.
You know, remember, Andy, when you first started coming in on Spectacle Hill, that had been a cart path, and then it was widened to like at least 20 to 25 feet, and then it got very muddy and stuff ran down into the road. You know, so I guess from my perspective, just having seen the beginning of the site, when it was first getting constructed, I just want to know if that's what we're going to
Well,
be
the
in
other-
for on that section
The
or
other
not.
thing we could do, I mean, frankly, is I could put wood chips down in the ground. I mean, it's just dirt. I don't really know what would take.
Well,
We could put wood chips down.
so
Well, part of the problem is once it's been rolled over, it gets torn up, and then it starts to rain, and then it moves.
Yeah.
So it isn't just a question of how many times you're running the rubber tire over it.
I mean, keep in mind, we're very experienced builders. I mean, and we're working out here all the time and creating, potentially dirt-moving situations. You haven't had one issue.
So
Well,
I'm
I
a little,
beg to differ.
I'm a little confused. So come July 1, are you going back to the original plans? Back to that original
Well,
road you
what
want to build?
we're planning on doing is building this road all the way here, so that come July 1, all we have to do is connect. Like, set the culvert and
Can you
build
just
the
point
wall.
that out again, sir?
We're planning on building,
Is it just outside the Oro?
yeah,
Does that road have any drainage that you have to put in to complete it?
Yes, it does.
sure.
But that's coming after you get the
Culvert.
the culvert in and complete? So I'm asking questions for a very specific
Yeah, I mean,
reason.
basically, we're.
And that is when you
building
go
the road.
over.
Yeah, we're gonna build the road just like we would have built it.
All right. I'm concerned with it, I'm concerned crossing the public lands, especially the 160 feet that are virgin. And they're cutting your car apart, they're practicing with the jaws of life. And I'm sorry, I thought your car was their demonstration.
It's okay. I actually
It's-
probably get it.
It's now a Jaguar Cabriolet.
It's getting
Anyway, so the reason I'm asking is, if you're gonna go over there, you're gonna have to restore it when you're done. And when you have to restore stuff, you have to put money into escrow for it. So we don't know what the escrow is gonna be, because what you sent us is a proposal that said, I'm not gonna do the whole project now, so I don't wanna give you the whole escrow. And you figured out that you were gonna give us like $59,000, $68,000.
76, 78.
Well, you already paid something for retention basins, so you subtract it, it was like 10 grand. So it's like $60,000 or $70,000 more that you're gonna do. But you're gonna have to add to that what the bonding would be for restoring the wetlands. Not the wetlands, the resource area, sorry, the resource area. But then you still need the open space, you still need to bond to go for restoration work.
Why does that have to be bonded?
Because everybody bonds it, because if you don't complete it, we have to have money to do that with. So that has to be bonded. In other words,
There's no, excuse me, question. There's no requirement of conservation restriction to be bonded. It just says we have to restore it.
right, but we would like it bonded, so we don't have to be concerned about it.
How are you going to gauge that?
That's why we want to know where you're going, and we're going to ask you to flag the trees that you're going to cut down, and maybe stake the sides of how wide you're going to go, and then you can see what has to be restored. You then submit a proposal what it would cost to restore that area, which is mostly the 160 feet, and then and then it's times 3, whatever the cost of that restoration is what the bond is.
Times 3?
That's our standard protocol.
Don't recall that.
You've done that in everything else that's been in it.
Well, sometimes it's one.
It was 1.5.
No,
It's
1.5
just
is for the...
Construction of the
You know what,
road.
Is
the
it road?
construction.
I don't get it.
Okay.
I mean, I'm happy to do that.
All right.
I don't know, what do you think it's, I mean,
I have no idea.
a couple $1,000.
Well,
But
if
we
you're
gotta see
cutting
what-
big trees, and you're gonna restore trees, then you're planting trees, right? Okay, so I don't know either, but, it adds up, so I don't know. I mean, all the Oro restorations have added up, so that we're at 149, with the wetland crossing and the,
Well, no.
I know, I'm just saying the whole general thing, and everything adds up.
149 is with the multiplier.
Yeah, but
And
you're saying
1.5
it's looking for a multiplier.
No, 1.5 times is on the road. No, 1.5 times on the road.
Right, right.
If
3
you're
times
doing
on the
plantings,
planting.
it's 3
Right.
times.
So the 149 is not really an accurate portrayal of what the actual cost
No,
is.
no, it's not. Actually, as part of the order of condition, it shows you what the estimated cost is, and then you get to the 140.
But bottom line, we're happy to address your concerns.
All right, so what we would like is that you mark where the crossing, including the cart path, to get to the other side, some sort of stakes or something on the side so we know how wide you're going to go. And then
I just said 15 feet.
I'd like it marked, is what I'm saying, Andy.
Well,
So we can walk, we want to walk it and see, and then I would like any trees that you're going to cut
if you
down
want
to
to
be
come out
flagged.
tomorrow, I'm walking, but I need to go to work. I've been waiting since November to get this section started. So, just keep in mind, we have the right in the conservation restriction to do this.
Okay,
So-
then go ahead and do it, and put your $149,000 bond down, and you can go ahead and do it. We're trying to make a compromise with you, so you don't have to put the whole bond down. So if you just want to go ahead and do it and tell me that I don't have a right to stop you, I agree. You give us the
I don't think you
$149,000
should
bond.
upset and penalize me. I'm saying if you
I'm
want
not
to come
penalizing
tomorrow
you.
and look at the 150 feet.
Yeah, but I can't always stop what I'm doing either. I'm a volunteer. This is your business. So I just can't get up.
And I need to make a living.
I'm
I
the-
can't just be held up here week after week. I gotta
Yeah,
get going.
it's time to go out and look at it.
I know.
I mean, it's
No.
a 150-foot strip of land, and it's a woods. That's what you're gonna come and look at, 150 feet.
So just mark where on the cart path, how wide you're going, and on the 160 feet where you, because you said you were snaking. You just said you
Right,
were
but
going straight.
We're gonna
So
avoid
we'd
the
like to
trees as
see
much
it,
as we can.
and I would like a ribbon tied around the trees that you're going to cut down so we can see the size and how many. That's all I'm asking. And then when we see that, you can give us an estimate of what the restoration would be, and it'll be times 3 added to the other 60 or 70,000, and
I
you can
think
start.
6 grand, 2,000 times 3, $6,000. It's,
You have to go get us an estimate.
I'm giving you this.
No, that's not the way it works. You have to go out when you're getting the stuff and send us an estimate and add the labor, because that's what we do with everybody.
And I do this all the time.
Yeah, but the
I
commission
have
needs
a-
an
I have a
actual
request.
estimate, that's our
To
requirement.
address your concern.
Mhm.
Our concern is that, as mentioned previously, this has been ongoing for a long, long time.
Yes, it
We gotta
has.
get going, okay?
And are you blaming the commission for
I
that?
am not blaming anybody for that.
Okay.
But I'm not assessing any blame anywhere.
Mhm.
We're just trying to move the project forward. The problem is, Carol's gonna be away. There's not gonna be enough meeting here until mid-April, okay? I'd like to ask the board to see that responsibility to set this up to Carol, so that we can move forward with her. Set up
I
the
won't be able
board.
to do it before I leave.
When are you leaving?
Tomorrow's my last day,
Where are you
and then I'm out of the country.
going?
Oh, wow.
And then I'm back April 7th, but I can't do it tomorrow.
Providing she can get past the border crossing. Could be longer. Do you have global entry? All right, you'll be good.
I mean, take a small risk, say, call it 6 grand. How far off can you be?
We don't know what it is. I want to go out and see.
Well, there's pictures. It's a woods. You know what a woods is.
Andy, you don't have pictures of where you're going, you've said you're snaking it, and that's the protocol that we've used all the time. The,
So I don't know, well, all right.
so,
I'll
maybe
get
you
an
could-
estimate. I'll take a picture of,
We want to,
I'll
I
put some
want to,
stakes in
Yeah.
of where we're gonna go.
and
I'll
put,
photograph how what exists there now
okay.
before we cut. And then we'll cut.
No, I want you to flag the trees that you're taking down. I want to see the trees you're taking down.
Well, you're gonna see them because I'm gonna.
No, I want to go out in person and see.
Okay, when are you gonna come?
As soon as I can. It won't be this week, but probably beginning of next week.
Trees are gonna be gone. And
Then
no
you
problem.
give us the 149,000. You can cut the trees.
No problem.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
your attitude, no problem. Come on.
okay, well, you have to get it in tomorrow.
I don't have to get it tomorrow. I'll deliver it before it's
Well,
done.
you have to do it before you're gonna start,
You're
and I'm not gonna be
actually
here
I'm not gonna, I'm
after
trying
tomorrow.
to work with you.
No,
But
you're
you don't
not.
want, Andy, I'm not gonna get into a big hullabaloo because,
You're saying you're gonna come out in a week to take a look at something that I have a right to do.
I'm not stopping you from doing it.
Okay, but I mean, what
But the
about-
condition that you do it is you give us the 139,000 because you paid 10. That's the conditions that are on the table now. So
But the, I mean, you are penalizing me because
Andy, the rest
the
of the,
149.5, right, the bulk of that money was for the crossing, and we're not doing it now. So why
right,
am I
but
bonding
the,
something?
you're asking
You know-
for them to do something special. The permit, the way it was set up is that the order says before you start the phase, you have to put up the bond. You're asking them to do something different than what the order says.
Right, I'm saying,
And
I'll put up the balance of it.
I know, but
when
you're
I go
asking them
do
to,
the work.
well, the permit doesn't say that. The permit says to put up what's required for that phase. And now you're asking to come a different way than everybody had discussed, from November until March. And again, the commission tried to work with you getting it out of season.
I know
The work,
I don't-
has been
it
under
sounds
construction
like
for
being
4
penalized.
years, and you could have done the crossing during the summer for 4 years. I mean, you're at the point you want to keep
Actually,
it
that's
going.
not true, you know,
Well,
because
let me
you guys
say-
actually had us closed down probably out of the last 2 years
Stop.
for a year and a half.
Carol,
Not
I'm
on the
sorry,
road.
I mean,
Not on the road.
you know, and the reason why you had us
Stop.
closed down is because
Andy,
you
stop it.
falsely, right, said we hadn't given you the deed. Now, we gave you the deed to the
Stop it.
land 9 months ago, and you still haven't recorded it.
Andy, stop it.
So, I mean, you
Stop
know, well, that's the truth.
Stop it. I'm sorry, Carol, please.
I think that what we're trying to do is to make sure that the conservation restriction that allows that very wide, not within any specific easement, is going to be restored properly. And that's one of the things that is specifically in the restriction, is that it has to be restored. And so the commission wants to see that. They want to understand what's going to be restored. And I don't think that's an unreasonable thing for them to do, so that they are clear about what the restoration is going to be required. I just don't see that as something that's unreasonable. And the timing of things is such that they are volunteers, and some people have vacation occasionally, and things can't always happen the day after a meeting. It just doesn't always work that way. But I think the commission's worked very hard to try to accommodate the changes from what have been in approved plans for 7 years.
So when's the next meeting?
I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Right.
But the bottom line also is, we came in November of last year and asked permission during the drought to do the crossing. It took us until like January or February to get a yes.
It took it to January, and for a couple of weeks, we didn't get responses from you, based on things that we asked. There was holidays during November and December, and the commission did the best that they could.
It's months.
I haven't even been, honestly, to be honest, I haven't even received verification that you've got the crossing authorization. There's been nothing from our engineers telling us that you have the go-ahead to do that. You've told me that you got it, but nothing from our
No,
engineers.
we had a letter.
Well, I haven't received it from the planner, and she has asked Fred Amway, their engineer, for it.
Yeah, we got a
Fred
letter.
was been on vacation.
All right,
We had it
we don't have a copy of it.
I even sent it to you myself. Or Alan did. It was
Yeah,
Mike
I know.
Maroney.
We
And,
got a letter from.
The last we had, well, anyway, I won't argue that because I
Doesn't
don't
matter.
remember, but
Right.
So
the
if you
planner
get-
had told me as of today that she was not aware of it.
149,000,
What's that?
if you put up 449,000, we'd say fine.
139,
130.
because he's already put up 10.
139.5,
He's already put up 10.
Although that's not the number that would actually cover,
the restoration.
particular
No,
work.
it wouldn't.
that's a number that would cover something else, which he's not doing.
Well, no,
No,
the
no,
139 would cover the phase 4, which is what the order conditions requires.
The order condition says before you start any work in that area, you have to fence the entire bond. So he's saying, I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I can't do the stream crossing because I can't do a winter crossing now. I'm going to go over the land. And all we're saying is that it has to be restored, and we want a bond. We just want to figure out how much the bond is, and then you can add that to the amount that he gave us, and if he could do it for, the bond would be less than that case. But he's saying he doesn't want to do that. He says we're holding him
We don't
up.
want to do it. We don't, Carol's going on vacation. The next meeting is like mid-April. It's like 3 weeks away. We're losing valuable time. That's the problem.
I just wonder if
Over
there's,
what is essentially trivial. Not trivial, but it's a small item in the scheme of the monies being put on.
I just wonder whether there's an amount of a bond that would be believably sufficient to cover.
Because we have to.
That's what we're
Well,
trying
that's
to do.
what Bob said.
That's what I'm trying to do the whole meeting.
No, but.
Right, but without us going out to sea, if we just
Yeah,
take
Bob,
the
you're talking
random
about.
160-foot
What you're
sand
asking for
flat
is
ground.
going to delay us by another 3 weeks.
No, it's not flat
Oh,
ground.
no, that was my other
All we're
question.
suggesting
What
is that,
I haven't seen it.
we're not, first of all, we're not end up putting up $149,000 eventually anyway. But in the short term, we asked for what, I think it was $76,000 or $78,000. If you wanted another kicker on top of that to secure this issue until we can get it.
76,000
Is-
based on times 3.
Yeah, that's my point. So, and this is a small issue in the scheme of things.
78,700.
I understand the desire to be secure, but we're talking about a very small item in the scheme of the project, and it's going to cause significant delay as a result of Carol's being away, as a result of the way you want it flagged. It just would seem to be overkill based on the circumstance. Yes, if we could come up with an alternative that makes sense for everybody, it would be better, so we can get going.
So I'm willing to come up with an alternative. That's what I've been trying to work on.
Right.
I don't know how much the extra bonding should be, because I don't know what you're cutting
And
down.
I understand that, but
That's why I said I could put stakes in the ground, paint them orange, 150 feet, photograph it before I cut anything. And then you'll see what,
And instead of putting up, maybe put up another 10,000, so whatever the number. I hear you, but I want to make everybody comfortable.
But whatever the cost is, it's times 3.
I hear what you're saying, but the problem is, again, I understand your desire for detail and thoroughness and everything else, but again, this is a very small item in the scheme of things, and because of the schedule, we're gonna be up to the marathon before we can get going. with
So,
this stuff.
so since we don't know how many trees you're gonna cut, what the cost of the trees, if you wanna start without us doing all that, take the pictures so we can see, a bunch of pictures so we can see how to restore it, and we're gonna ask for a little higher amount. If he says it's 3,000 times 3 is $9,000, I'm gonna say add $15,000 or $20,000 for the bond for this, and I'll be satisfied. Otherwise, wait till I go out and see, and you can give me a proposal.
you throw money around like it's nothing. You're ridiculous.
All right. Then you pay the whole bond.
But we're down from 149.
We're not down. We're not down. That's not the point of it. The point of it is when he comes to us and says, I've already negotiated this, I don't have to make a change, and yet he keeps asking for changes on his side. And I'm trying to work with
Although
him.
Bob, thank you, and in fairness, all we're trying to do is to react to the different circumstances we're being presented with. Obviously, we didn't anticipate being in this position. We were hoping over the winter to do the crossing as planned and everything else. It didn't work out. We're trying to keep on point.
So if you did the crossing, if you were coming in, say, I'm starting the crossing, Carol, go check, we think the ground's refrozen, and you were coming in, we would have to have $149,000
Absolutely.
before you stop.
That is correct.
So now that you're not doing it that way, it's,
70,000,
does that include the 10 or not the 10? Is it 10?
doesn't include.
It's 78 minus 10, I think.
Yeah.
No, that,
Oh.
well,
Actually, guys, if you,
Yeah, 78,000 minus
78, yeah, I have the numbers. I
It's
can pull them up.
78,000 and you already have
Just in
10.
case anybody wants
Obviously
it.
surprised.
Except to see, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
78,750.
68,000. You'd have to do 149 if you go across the stream.
Correct.
So I'm asking for them, and if you don't want to wait for us to go out and inspect it, I'm going to want a little higher amount put away, because we're not looking at it. So if you're in a rush, let's see, it's what, 68,000?
No, 78.
But you already did this
It's a
10.
net of 68.
Oh,
Net of-
68, you're right. Okay.
Net of 68, add 15,000 to that,
Fine.
take the pictures with it, and I want the trees you're going to cut with a ribbon on it in the picture, so I can
Right.
see them.
Would you kindly, fine, can we get a motion for $83,000 as the deposit, we can move forward along those lines? Let's do it.
Well, does
Let's
everybody
do it.
feel comfortable with that? All right, so what the motion's going to be
Yes?
is that you're going to stake the road, you're going to flag all the trees that you're going to cut down.
Wait, hold on a second. Sit tight.
How are we gonna see these pictures, Carol?
He can email them to us. He can email, when Carol's not here, I think I'll give him my email,
Okay,
and they can email me the
And you
pictures,
forward
and
it
I'll
on to
forward it
us.
to everybody.
Just to
Okay.
give you an idea, that 20 grand, I could hardwood, like, what you put in your house, hardwood,
Yeah?
the whole thing.
Bob,
That's how much.
what do you need? You want the ground stake?
You're talking about
I'd like
$8 a
I'd like the ground stake where the road's going,
Ground stake.
including the cart path with pictures, and I would like all the trees that have been cut down to have a ribbon on them in the pictures, so we know which trees have been cut down.
Okay, fine, thank you. That would be great. So we're
Can
talking about...
I ask about anything
I
else?
think it makes more sense.
Do you want him to use the maps? Do you
Yeah, I
want
still
him-
want to use the mats.
And you're going to use the minutes.
He's going to use the mats for any vehicles crossing, and I'm concerned just about unless anybody else, I'm concerned about the virgin land, not the cart path as much. Is everybody,
The
Oh,
150
yeah.
feet.
So it's-
100, whatever it is, we don't know how much it is.
That's only 150 feet.
Because if he's snaking it, it will be a little longer, so I don't know exactly the distance.
With the bottom line being from one cut path to the other.
Well, why don't you have him tell you, after he stakes it, what the distance is, so you have
Yeah.
that
Because
information.
if you're scooting through, you're obviously not, there's root systems that need to be protected in that section.
What's that?
In
So, and it'll be agreement that all the equipment always has to be under a mat. It just can't go part mat and then part ground on that 150, 60.
That's not cart path.
Not cut
Right,
mat.
okay,
So,
good.
and is anybody concerned with, and I'm just throwing it out there, if we're only using the mats on that section, is anyone concerned about spills of, gasoline from these pieces of equipment, I think just for this traverse and open space? And I don't know how much of an issue we have with stuff leaking out of those kind of equipment. I know that, heavy equipment like that seems to not be all that secure sometimes.
Well, let me ask, if Andy's permission for anybody in the Conservation Commission, if they want to go check out the work to see what you're doing and how you're doing it, that we can come on at any time and look at it.
Absolutely.
I think under the CR you have the right to inspect.
We have,
anyway.
we're happy, just, yes,
Without an appointment.
we're very proud of it, so.
And as long as you're not driving one of the tractors, I'll. But if you're
good at it.
driving, I'm staying in my
Let me
car.
know ahead of time.
I'm staying in my car if you're driving a tractor.
Run fast.
Terrific.
I live not too far away, so.
By all means, go on by my house.
So we're adding, we were accepting the number you gave us, that the work, the bonding on this is 68 something is what you owe us.
Yeah, that's right.
Plus 15,
It's really 70, it's just that you already have 10,000.
well, I'm subtracting it, I know it's
Right.
78.
So it's 68 plus 50.
Because you already did some of the work, that's why you gave the 10,000.
Right,
Right.
right, that work's done.
Yeah. So give it the 83 and the change, whatever it figures out to be. And where do they submit that before they begin the work?
Well, they need to submit it to me, but I'm only here tomorrow.
I'll have to give it to the town treasurer or something.
How do you,
I can talk to the treasurer.
how do you
Yeah,
record it?
thank you.
How do you record it?
Well, I do it usually through a deposit to the town, to the tax collector as a security deposit, and then she gives it to the tax,
You can
to
have all that
the town
set right around.
treasurer.
So why don't you set that up, so Andy, and we'll let Andy know who to see, to give the money to.
So that'll be to the treasurer, the town treasurer?
Well, I'm gonna figure that out with them.
Thank you.
Either the tax
Just pop
collector,
me an email.
usually I do it with the tax collector, and she sends it to the treasurer, but,
Right, and if you use euros, we want the same 83,000.
well, actually, I'd like the kroner if it could just be made out to me, because that's where I'm gonna need that.
Okay, yeah, just pop me an email.
Kroner's
with the
less.
arrangements, That would be great.
Oh, no, the krone, it's not the kroner, that's the.
Krone?
Krone,
I think
yeah.
that's less too.
No, it's not.
It isn't now?
No.
It was before when I was there.
Pounds would be good too.
You go to Denmark. And none of the cutting happens or any, until we get the pictures and the money's in.
And the money comes in before anything's spent. Absolutely.
I will make a motion
Thank you.
that, that we will accept $15,000 bond for restoration with it crossing the public land under the condition that it doesn't proceed until the town receives its check for $83,000 plus, you fill in the exact amount. And we've been supplied with pictures of the road stake, the cot road stake, the road through the virgin area stake, and any tree that's going to be cut to be with a ribbon around it, so we can see what's being cut.
Can I make a suggestion? I'd rather just, it's a lot
I
simpler.
got to get a second, you can't talk.
Oh, sorry.
Well, don't feel comfortable second. I'd actually like to hear what the suggestion is, just in case we need to change that motion at all.
No, that's, you make an amendment, once you make an motion,
Okay.
to second it,
I will second it.
and then I'll accept your discussion there.
Rather than putting a ribbon around all the trees, I'd rather just do the stakes, have them painted orange, and show it.
I
And what's in
I prefer the ribbons,
Yeah, this,
just ribbon, that's what we've always done. I've never seen anything else but a ribbon. Anybody else seen anything else? It's just easy to see, and we'll know
usually you
which
put ribbons
trees.
around trees you're not gonna cut, and you do a limit of clearing by stake. And so what you cleared is what's in between the stakes.
Laurie, what do you think?
Well, we have a standard requirement in our order that they do a tree cutting plan, and the tree cutting plan is typically, as you said, showing the ribbons on the trees.
Yeah.
They have also done it the other way where, everything's gonna be cut except for what they're saving. And if it's gonna be so limited that they're not saving a whole lot within the 12-foot thing, then just flagging the ones that are gonna be saved is probably more visible than looking at all the trees that are gonna be cut.
So you're gonna, also flag the ones you're gonna save then, and put the stakes where you're cutting through. So we can see them on the picture.
Mistakes up where you're gonna go through.
Right, and you're gonna see whatever trees are
And,
in between the stakes.
but would
You'll
you
see.
please flag the trees you're not cutting?
If there's any trees within the
Because
stakes
we're not
that
seeing
you're
it, I
gonna
would
cut,
like any tree you're saving to be flagged, please.
Within the stakes.
Trees.
So that way we get to see the path and the trees. And
So one of the other things that might be helpful is like to have a station point. You know how when you do your road, even if it's only 100 feet, but if you had some station mark that said, so that they can visualize where the picture is. You know, this is at station 1, you know, and then you go 25 feet, and this is the next, you know, set of stations.
I will try to get over there, but it won't be this week.
Okay, so at this, we're gonna only be putting ribbons around trees that are gonna be saved within the
Out-
stakes.
Yeah, outside.
It's gonna be, the stakes are gonna show the area in between the two cart paths
Yeah,
where the trail's gonna go.
right.
Shouldn't the Conservation Commission be the ones to determine which trees should be saved, though? Why would they know which trees to save particularly?
Well, normally that would be the course that we would prefer to do
But
it.
because we don't have time.
Right.
Tell me, we're gonna take down
We're going to take down most of
We're
the
gonna try to do it
Just cheaper.
the least significant.
Once they
The
take
least-
down, then let's have one place.
and restore.
Yeah, so this way we'll know how many, we can count, we want to be able from the pictures to count the number of trees that have to be restored. That's what we really want. That's why the flags were helpful to me, because I just count all the ones you were doing.
We want to ask them to give you a count as well then.
All right, and a count of all the trees that you're cutting down. Over a certain thickness, what size?
About 2-inch diameters, the small saplings.
So anything over 2 inches, we want to know. Any further discussion? So we can take a vote.
Yeah, stop.
All in favor then of the motion?
Well, actually, I'd like to propose an amendment
Okay.
to the motion that, rather than marking the trees, now than flagging the trees that they're going to be cutting down, that they're going to flag any trees they're not going to be cutting down within the delineated proposed path. And then what was the second thing we just discussed? Oh, and that they'll also provide us with a count of any trees that get cut down over 2 inches in diameter.
Okay. Come on, Maria, you've lost your voice. You need a second.
Second.
The
All-
amendment.
So a vote on the amendment, all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye. All in favor of the motion? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Okay.
Now you can say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. If anybody needs it, by the way, I did blow up the numbers.
Oh,
Carol, this might be helpful.
I mean,
My office is next to Staples, it looks up really nice and stuff.
okay, that's good, thank you.
They won't be there long. Which Staples?
The one on the Needham one.
They're closing a lot of their
Are they
stores.
really?
They can't afford them. They can't compete with like
That's a
W.
shame.
Mason
It's
companies that don't
great.
have
It's a great
stores.
thing to have in stores.
Sort of like same thing, like Circuit City,
I couldn't read
can't
it.
compete with the online retailers. People go to Circuit City, they see the TVs, then they go home and
Hasn't
order.
been doing well?
It's not.
No, the mail order's doing well. The stores are not doing well. A lot of the stores are losing
Oh,
money.
really?
They'll do morning and afternoon delivery, so if you need paper clips in the morning, they'll deliver them after.
It's funny, I remember when they
Next
started
morning,
Staples,
so-
Tom Stenberg back in.
Well,
They're like if you go to
If you get a
W.
small
Mason,
business, though, those places are perfect, I think.
New
they-
things, and the life of the store is.
they're actually the biggest
Although
mail
they're
order.
not
They're the biggest delivery
Part of my
company.
job
They are the biggest.
was to make.
Delivery.
Wait, hello.
But the stores are
Right.
because you get the bricks and mortar. Pretty soon there won't be stores,
Documents
they'll
and
just
put them
be
in everybody's
showrooms.
mailbox every day.
Right.
Nobody
Because
does
it'll be much
any
smaller.
of that.
So don't build a shopping mall that says
Employees,
Walmart.
no insurance, unemployed.
Did I hear you?
But your name's similar to the one that's going up in Hudson. Is it close?
Highland Avenue.
Is it-
Off
is it-
1.
Did he do the Northborough too?
No.
With the Whitman, is that the same guy? Because they were so much alike. That's a big
It's coming up
success.
128 right there.
And this one is starting a lot of stores.
Right.
You don't worry, you don't
So
worry.
know how to get it
Of
going.
course I.
They couldn't get the tenants because of the,
Oh, really? You went to North?
but that market
I
basket.
went to North for 1 year.
It's a very nice
Then I went
market.
to
You're gonna be Old North?
You live in Newton, you're gonna have a Wegmans.
Old New North.
Next week or something.
Did you go with it, 3 buildings in one?
He was 3.
Right, don't
Okay,
have to
that was
put
the old North.
Adams,
You what?
I
So
can't,
don't have to
Adams,
put a
the
pool
other
in.
house, I
I know the
could
answer ahead of
That's
time.
good.
Why?
You have to come see us.
There was one that was built in 1867.
That was building one.
Don't
I
make
was
it a
last.
mess.
Friday.
Are you moving? Which lot are you
When
taking?
they had the tunnels.
Yes.
Between building
49.
1, 2, and 2,
Yeah,
and 3.
so you're younger than
And a little,
Right,
the,
wow,
when you had to go
this
down
is
to
the old lot.
Yeah.
the gas thing to
Right.
protect yourself. Very dangerous.
But then I'm eventually gonna probably go back.
You'll sell it.
This is the,
All right, well, good luck.
Thank you
all
very
right,
much.
great.
All right.
Thank you all.
Carol, have a nice trip.
Thank you.
So we'll have you'll email me the pictures, you think you have that tomorrow in the state?
Denmark is phenomenal.
I'm only gonna be gone for a week, but, and mostly just in Copenhagen.
Cool.
Yeah, it'll be
So
really.
you'll have the pictures for us tomorrow, with everything we've asked?
Alan, so I will send you,
The treasurer's
I'll
information.
send you Bob's email and who the
You want a
check.
card, so you have my email, Ellen?
Oh, okay, we have something for
I'll
you.
give you a card.
Thank you.
There's my email on it. And,
Thank you.
Thank you.
and would you let me know, would Joseph send me an email when the check's at the
Yep.
town hall?
Absolutely. And we have this issue, we have plenty of starting to answer. That's absolutely.
Is Tivoli and Legoland open yet?
Tivoli's not. I don't know, but I was looking for like a little morning.
Tivoli was charming, we can do any rides, we walked around, we did it there. It's just charming because it's so fashioned.
Yeah.
You got all the old fashioned round light bulbs and all the lights of wood, the lights of wood.
I don't know where, I mean, I know the amusement park's not open, I don't know if you can't go walk there.
Yeah. So you were lucky, you were That's really kind of stuff, 6 weeks.
Yeah,
I say something,
Carol, have a good trip.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We went to Dallas because they just rebuilt it. It was amazing. We met a guy who did all the metal work in it, and he was that guy.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was kind of neat. I love Coke.
Can you take the bridge in the tunnel over the
Just talking about it, again, it's a little bit too short
That's
to
a
do
lot of
everything.
Yeah. It's not a cheap trip.
No,
It's not, a couple of quarters.
no, yeah, we haven't decided on that.
Is there any update on the open space deeding? Because according to him, it sounded like the ball was in our court.
No, I think we probably need to do council and commission and planning, sit down and see where things really are.
Yeah.
And make sure that it's still moving. I had sent in January an email that said that the trust was going to be taking the open space, and these are the next steps that need to happen. The only step I'm aware of that's happened was that they went back to the planning board and modified the decision to take out the wells in the zone 1 area from the open space. I was told, but I haven't, again, seen anything happen with it, that the baseline's been authorized for doing baseline documentation of all the open space area. And they need to provide a trail easement that goes through the zone 1 area. We need to get that. We need to get the section of trail easement from Century Mill Road. Anyway, so there's like 5 things, including the deeds that need to be prepared. The deed that he was talking about is the one that they gave us back in January that didn't fit the bill. It didn't achieve what we were trying to get in terms of separating out the active recreation from the open space and the infrastructure and stuff.
So is the planning board working on that? Are they working with them on that?
I've been talking to the planner about it. She's going to be talking to the planning board, I believe, a little bit tomorrow night as well, because this is a whole different process than what was ever expected and intended to come in through the open space and start building that road. So I think she's going to update them on that, and also, say that the planning board's decision only requires it happen when it's like up to 75% occupancy. So they didn't have the same requirement that we did. So they do require the open space to be granted, but not until a much further out in time.
Oh. Just now we knew that.
No.
So it's gonna take a long time then? to get
Well,
that
our order still requires that it be done, and it should have been done already, so we're still working in that direction. But I think it's probably at the point that we may need to have the trust and the two councils, Alan and Judy, have another meeting to make sure that we're on the right path. Because there's still a question as to whether or not we need to get anything filed with the legislature. We thought that when the trust said that they would own the land, that might avoid that whole thing. But if they don't want the land with the infrastructure on it, then the town would have to own it, and then we're still stuck with having the whole merger issue happen, in which case it wouldn't make sense for them to own just that part. But then it would make sense for them to hold the restriction and us to own the land. And that's sort of all come up in this last week because Senator Flanagan's office sent us an email and said, are we all set with the Article 97 thing, or is that, do we not need to deal with it? Because if we do need to deal with it, we need to deal with it very soon so that it can happen within this legislative year before they recess. So we're trying to figure that out. I'm not quite sure.
Other business to attend to?
So-
Do we have bills?
Yeah, we already did all that.
Okay.
Do we feel comfortable that the bond that we're asking is more than sufficient for the work that he wants to do?
Yes and no.
Because it was not clear to me at all what the cost for that was going to be. I don't know how we can blindly say, okay, give us this. I mean, he just scribbled some stuff on a plan.
I don't disagree, but he has the right to cross the land, and so, as long as, I think,
So getting any bond really was
so
helpful.
we're gonna have more money. I think then, we'll have enough money to protect the town with that extra 15. I felt confident, otherwise I wouldn't have gone
And I
ahead
think that's
with
what we're trying to do, is to come up with a number that gave us more than enough assurance.
It's just not clear to me that it's enough assurance, that's all. It's not clear to me that that number's going to be more than sufficient. I don't really understand what his cost is for doing that part.
Well, it is not really his cost, it's what the town's cost would be if we had to do it.
Should we
Right.
do more?
Right. So I think that, I thought it was sufficient because we're also getting the other 68,000, and we still hold the 10,000 from the basin. And the basin, I think, is completed.
Yeah, I'm sure one of the next steps that they're gonna have is to come in and start asking for releases of some of their other money that we're holding from the first phase that they did.
Okay. So, I mean, in an ideal world, it would be nice if when he came and started asking for that money back, that we would have more progress on the deeding of the open space.
I had actually intended to say more about that tonight, but it was kind of going in a direction that it was hard to bring that back, that part up.
I think if we had gone that way, because Carol did give me the email she sent to them, they haven't responded to, that I was thinking it too, but it was just going to blow up at that
Yeah.
point. And I didn't think it would be productive or constructive for either side.
But going forward, you know.
Right. Well, that's why I think that we probably need to do a sit-down between the people who are really going to do the work, including the attorneys and including the trust. Because it's not going to happen without, and that's the only progress that we saw was when we were meeting regularly to sort of get these things in order. Because it's hard to do it in this kind of a setting because we don't have everybody else included. We don't have the trust here, we don't have somebody from the planning board here in case they have issues.
I know, and so,
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
maybe when you get back from vacation, something
Yeah.
that we can start to coordinate, because we're gonna need leverage.
Right.
It's going to be your neighbor.
We know we're gonna need it
It's
again.
going to be your neighbor now.
That's, well, I'll believe it when I see it.
So,
Can I just add that I was pretty flabbergasted that he claimed that they've never had any issues on the site with erosion.
I saw you. I begged to differ with you.
Yeah, I heard that too.
So, I mean, the whole thing was, how many machines are going over? 2. Then it was 3, 4, we ended up with 6. How many times they're crossing? Well, just once, but one had to come back. And it ended up, they might have to go back and forth 6 times. So that's what's difficult dealing with him, is because he's not up front from the beginning, and then he wonders why we don't trust him.
Well, he says he's an experienced builder, but I haven't seen anything that he's demonstrated that he knows what he's doing. Or else he wouldn't be here right now talking about this alternate plan. He would have gotten his act together in November, to deal with
Before
that
November,
original
so-
plan.
yeah.
Well, right. But, they ran out of time. Well, they didn't foresee what they had to do.
But they might have financial pressures because he was gonna post the bond, and that's what I think really held everything up, was he couldn't post the bond. Because he said, how about a letter of credit, which we
Yeah,
wouldn't
but,
accept.
you know,
That's not,
I told them that the engineering takes time. I mean, when they first came in, I told them that.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, a couple weeks. And I was like, well, the last time I saw one of these, it didn't take just a couple weeks. You know, so I mean, that's, my feeling has been that there's been poor planning all along on their part, and they keep bringing us into it, and then acts like we're not cooperating when it's been their poor planning.
So, I think it was a reasonable solution, otherwise I wouldn't have gone along with it.
Right, and our check on it is that the terrain ends up the way that we think it should, or we've got the escrow that we're not going to give back to them until they make it.
I think everybody in their own should go up there and just take a look, all right?
do we need to go with the police?
If you want, you could ask him for an escort.
Um,
I don't, as long as he's not in the tractor, I feel
I don't know where
comfortable
I'm
going.
going. If I went up there, I wouldn't.
Yeah, if you haven't been there, I mean.
I
you
mean,
may
I
not
know the well area. Is it near there?
Yeah, that's where it starts.
Yeah, but
on the road.
he's not going to be staking until you take the trail in, and there's
So
many
I don't-
trails,
Right, I
so.
don't know where that is.
So-
So I'm not just gonna go up there and hope that I can find.
Well, if I'm going up there, I'll send everybody an email if someone wants to go with me, if I find time to go up. But it won't be till next week. To take a look. But I want to see the pictures to make sure he does what he says, because I'll send him an email and say the pictures are not satisfactory.
Yeah, and my concern is, he's not gonna wait. He's not gonna wait to do the work.
Well, I think he's going to wait because he's waited at this point. I think he's waited.
I think his
to meet
attorney's
with
going to
you
make
as
him
well.
wait. Right. But his method is to throw a temper fit to try to get his own way.
And he's getting it.
I
It's
kind of,
working for him.
when I met with Carol this morning, I said that I just want some more escrow, and I thought it was a reasonable amount. I thought that was a reasonable effort. I wasn't going to take 3,000,
Well,
but I thought the amount was reasonable for that.
but if it were anybody else, we would make them go through a process. We have a process for this. He got away without doing the process. You know, what about, well, we have the same rules for everybody that we have. to
Well,
follow.
except for that this wasn't part of the order of conditions. This is part of, he
It's
has.
a totally new. He
But
should
he has
file a
the,
whole new.
what he's saying, he has the right.
No,
to
what we
go
found,
through.
Maria, what we found on the restriction, which town council verified,
know, that's-
that he has the right to cross that land for
It's
construction.
open space land. How
But-
can he have the right to use that?
Because the town
They
didn't
reserve
catch
that
it.
right.
They reserved the right,
Very unfortunate.
Well,
so,
I called the state today, and she said it's not that uncommon, you know, that people will reserve those rights, especially when they're building a development. So I don't think that I think that it didn't send off any alarms when the CR was being reviewed, because it's something that happens that way. Her only caution is that it was very broad. I mean, I saw conflicting things that I questioned, but again, the bottom line was that people said that he had the right. I think that the only other part to it was that he also has to restore the area. I mean, that's in the restriction. We enforce the restriction. And that now we have some money if we had to do something ourselves, that we could pull that. Otherwise, there wasn't any provision or requirement for him to put that up.
In the restoration, if he takes down large trees, are we expecting him to replace them with the same size tree that he
No, we
took?
No, we
haven't,
never do
with
that.
anybody, we haven't. Nobody ever can do that.
but reasonable sized trees.
Meaning, right, what's the definition? I mean, hopefully he knows what's reasonable.
Well, that's why I wanted the pictures. So, I mean, I personally felt that after Carol had checked with town council about the restrictions in the open space, they had a right to go there. And so the choice was either come to a reasonable amount of escrow, more than he was saying, because I didn't disagree that even though the order says you put it all ahead of time, he's not going to be doing all the work and he's not going to be doing the drainage work and things of that nature. So it was just a question of finding something that was reasonable. And to be honest, if you didn't think it was reasonable, you should have said something when I asked for discussion. Because now we voted on it.
Well, also, he can't go forward. I mean, he may be on an island if he doesn't restore it. So, he will need to restore this before he starts the crossing.
Well, we didn't say that. But if he wanted to do it before July, we'll be coming back to you.
Yeah.
And then you can say, well, we want it restored by a certain time. We didn't say when we wanted it restored.
Because we don't know how long he's gonna be crossing it.
Yeah.
I mean, he could continue to cross it after he has the culvert there in the crossing.
The deed he gave us, the deed that we didn't think was suitable, included all the reservations that are in the conservation restriction, including the right to continue to access anywhere on the land.
Oh, really?
I don't know that he can do that, and I don't know that anyone would accept that, but
I don't know whether
they
the
did
town
in that
accepts
deed, they did keep all those same reservations.
That doesn't make any sense for the town.
Any other business, or can we close the meeting? We're adjourned.